everyone. Prime Minister Netanyahu called me last week and indicated he wanted to have an opportunity to speak to all Senate Republicans. As I think you know, we just had that conversation. He made a presentation. We had questions and answers afterwards. I made it clear to him that it's not the business of the United States to be giving a Democratic ally advice about when to have an election or what kind of military campaign they may be conducting. We obviously have a lot in common, but it seems to me the bipartisan support for Israel seems to be cracking on the political left in this country. I still think our best policy is to not give any Democratic ally advice about when to have an election, who ought to run the government, or how to conduct a military campaign. Secondly, we also have in common concern about the best way to handle Iran, particularly given the fact that they are providing assistance to the terrorists in Gaza, the terrorists in Lebanon, the terrorists in Yemen, now shooting at us. This is a serious international situation. I hope also, as I think all of you know, that we can get assistance to Ukraine quickly.
I'll just echo what the leader said. We had a really good discussion back and forth, a lot of opportunity to ask questions, and our members conveyed to the Israeli Prime Minister our strong support for their efforts to defeat once and for all and get rid of the influence of Hamas in that region of the world. Here at home, for the past 3 years, President Biden and his administration have been pursuing their costly and radical Green New Deal, which not only has lessened our energy security, but it has increased the costs for consumers across this country. In fact, since President Biden took office, energy costs have risen on average 35%. 35%. And of course, this week they're back at it. The President has announced his mandate for the American people to drive electric vehicles. Now, the average cost of an electric vehicle is $52,000. And Americans have seen their real income since Biden took office go down by 4.2%. So their incomes haven't kept up with the rate of inflation. We all know since he took office, inflation, the cumulative rate of inflation is 18.6%. And so he's asking the American consumer to buy electric vehicles, $52,000 per electric vehicle, at a time when their real income has gone down since he's been in office, all in pursuit of a Green New Deal fantasy. And so we have a number of our members who have filed legislation. Senators Ricketts, Sullivan, Crapel all have legislation out there that would roll back these onerous, costly, and unrealistic mandates that this president has put forward on the American people to force them into electric vehicles, something that is not realistic in many parts of the country, including where I'm from, where you drive long distances and have extreme temperatures. It's not realistic, it is unaffordable, and it is an ill-advised policy, and we will do everything we can to try and see that it gets stopped.
Last week, Chuck Schumer came to the floor of the United States Senate and attacked the elected government of Israel. I invited the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, to visit with the Senate Republicans today, which he did. And he knows that the people on the Republican side of this aisle stand with the people of Israel. We asked for him for an update, and we got it on the war, on the release of the hostages, and in the efforts to defeat Hamas. We told him Israel has every right to defend themselves, and he said that's exactly what they continue to do. Chuck Schumer's attacks on Netanyahu and the government of Israel is an attack upon a democracy. Schumer has threatened and invited the overthrow of the leadership of the people of Israel. He has done all of this to me, which is an outrageous interference in the lives of a democracy. Schumer has called Netanyahu the obstacle to peace. The obstacle to peace is Hamas, the Hamas killers, the Hamas rapists, the Hamas terrorists. Those are the people who are the obstacles to peace. The people of Israel have every right to elect whoever they want to lead them. The Democrats talk about the two-state solution. In my opinion, the two states they're most worried about are Michigan and Nevada, which are states that Biden is very worried about in terms of his own re-election. President Biden ought to have the backbone to stand up with the people of Israel. Instead, he's running scared of the extremists of his own party, the people who are standing with Hamas. They're the extremists who are loud and who are angry and have chosen the wrong side. The Republicans continue to stand with the people of Israel.
Good afternoon to everybody. We have pending before us, I think, the end of our appropriations cycle of 2024. As a member of the Appropriations Committee, I'm pleased that this weekend we will be passing the last 6 bills. At least that's my great hope. We're not sure exactly when. I am the ranking committee member on the Labor H bill, which is the second largest domestic, or it's the largest domestic spend bill after defense. We were able to maintain important provisions in that bill that are important to our members, the Hyde Amendment and others. It is a little bit less spending, which is good news as well, and it sets the priorities for the coming year. So I want to thank, particularly on our side, Senator Collins for her leadership, her steadfast leadership to work these bills. She's been a tireless advocate to try to make sure that we didn't end up in continuing resolutions or omnibus, and this week I think she's going to be able to fulfill that promise. I would also like to say, in terms of the EV mandate that came through, or the regulation that came through today, I would suggest to all of you, if you've ever been skiing at Snowshoe or at Canaan Valley or at Timberline, don't drive your electric car over there. You may not get there. It's steep, it's cold, but if you do get stuck there, there's some really nice coal miners nearby, and they'll help you push your car up the hill so you can recharge. So the fact that the president wants to force us all and force this country into a buying pattern of something that a lot of people can't afford, don't want, and don't suit their lifestyle or the directions that they need to drive every day, just shows me the arrogance of this administration and how they're willing to use regulation to force people into certain habits that are really counter to their best interests. Thank you.
Thing I've observed over the last couple of weeks is that President Biden and his Democrat allies in Congress, they care more about installing EV charging stations at the border than stopping terrorists. You recall the Inflation Reduction Act, which every Senate Democrat supported, obviously did nothing to stop inflation, only actually accelerate it. It's being used to fund their border climate obsession. According to the GSA, this funding will support reducing emissions at the border, developing all-electric buildings at the border, achieving net zero emissions at the port of entry, installing solar panels and EV chargers at the border. I've got a different idea they might want to try out. How about trying to secure the border? Maybe finish building the wall. Because it's not if, but when there will be a terror attack on our soil. And this past weekend proved that. An illegal immigrant from Lebanon, March 9th, snuck over our border and admitted to being a member of Hezbollah for 7 years. This was the headline, the New York Post. When asked why he was here by Border Patrol agents, he replied, and I quote, "I'm going to go and try and make a bomb." He said his training was focused on killing people, and I quote, that was not Muslim. This is chilling. And as we see a record number of illegal immigrants on the terror watch list coming across our border, this should be yet another wake-up call to President Biden and Senate Democrats. But instead, the president is going to spend $1 billion to make the border greener rather than more secure. This truly is a slap in the face to the American people who are rightfully concerned by the open southern border and the complete dereliction of duty when it comes to our national security.
The former president has called the January 6th prisoners hostages, patriots, and promised to pardon them if he wins again. Is that appropriate?
I'm going to avoid talking about the presidential election. It's going on pretty darn early, and I think a better pattern for me is to do my job here.
Leader McConnell,
Chad.
I know we're waiting for the House of Representatives to move this minibus spending bill. There's not much time over here, but considering that this is probably more than $1 trillion, who knows how many earmarks, how much time for do members need to do due diligence on a bill like that when we're up against a deadline?
Well, first is a commitment over on the House side, unless they waive it, to have it out for 72 hours. So my assumption, and what I've told our members, is we're likely to be here this weekend. That will be determined, however, by how long it stays in the House. And when it's over here, what we have recently done, and I think hopefully will work again, is that in return for a certain number of amendments, we can finish it quicker, hopefully, than putting us in the position of shutting down the government.
There appears to be some traction for the idea of making some of the Ukraine money a loan that's perhaps forgivable and can be waived. Are you open to that approach at this point?
What I've said repeatedly is we're running out of time. And the best way to get Ukraine the help they need is for the House to pass the Senate bill. The problem with changing it, as you all know, it can take you 3 days to do the simplest thing here in the Senate. We don't have the time. So I'm continuing to advocate to the Speaker that he put the bill on the floor and let people vote.